Bonjour everyone, this is Tuula Rampont, International Living France's correspondent, and I'm coming to you today from our home in southeastern France. This region is known as Provence, and I have lived here for the last 10 years. Some cities close to us, a major city called Toulon. This is an area also known as the French Riviera. We're going to talk about cost of living today, and just to start off, we are on the working class side of the French Riviera. To give you an idea already of budgets, Toulon is a military town. Going up the coast, you have famous cities like Cannes and Antibes and Nice. These are quite pricier places than we are. Also in the area, you'll find Aix-en-Provence, Cassis, and Bandol. So these are some big names around us in southeastern part of France. And today we are talking money. Budgets. If you dream of coming to live la belle vie, the good life in France, I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that on a slim budget. First of all caveats aside, I think that people suspect France is very expensive. I'm not going to put any rose-colored glasses on the whole affair by saying there are parts of France that are expensive. We're going to look at a typical budget, some figures, and there is a link also that you can go to the International Living website and have a look at a detailed budget breakdown. I'll talk about some ways to save big in France versus the United States, how we do that here and how we save on some of our costs, the big differences between the two, and also some affordable areas in France. First of all, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're doing well in your corner of the world. Feel free to leave a comment or ask a question during the presentation, and I will be happy to answer. So first of all, areas in France that are pricey. When we think of France, I know myself before moving to France, I was here 2011 is when I came. I had traveled to Paris once. I'd been around the country different times. But Paris, to me, epitomized France. I always thought growing up that Paris was France, and it was just chic, it was fashionable, these elegant people walking down the streets, and it had to be terribly expensive. Paris is pricey. The biggest thing you're going to spend on Paris, the rents, and I'm going to talk about the difference, the rent we pay here and the rent that you can pay in Paris. So the big thing about France, if you want to move here and you're on a slim budget, or you just want to save some money and maybe travel around Europe with the extra funds that you have, stay away from these really big name cities, the glitzy, glamorous Paris, Nice I mentioned, Saint-Tropez, Antibes, some of the other big cities, living in the center of Lyon. It's quite expensive. If you have the budget, go for it. I think all of us would love to live in Paris. I know I would, but I know very few expats in my small circle here down in the south of France, and also French folks. I think even, I'll talk about, I work here, I manage an English language school, and I think if I even made double the salary, I really don't think I'd be able to afford living in Paris. If you can, go for it. The big savings here between the United States and France, two major things to think about, rents and housing. Rents and housing prices differ greatly across the country. I mentioned that we're next to a larger city on the Mediterranean coast called Toulon, which is technically on the French Riviera, but people never think of Toulon when they think of the French Riviera. However, it has all of the cool things that you find on the French Riviera. It has lovely beaches, bistros, restaurants, seaside cafes, outdoor Provençal market. There's a really nice opera house, very well known for the architecture style is Italian. Got shows coming in, operas all the time, concerts, musicals. There's theater. There's just a ton of stuff going on, but as I mentioned, it's a working class town. So it's not on the radar of, again, these glitzy, glamorous places that people think about when they are thinking about moving to France. When we first moved to Toulon, and now we're in a village right outside of the city, about 10 minutes drive from Toulon, we rented, I didn't really know where to go, and I wanted to really be on the sea, and I couldn't believe the prices, so we rented really almost right on the sea. We had a 2-bedroom, 1 bath with a small, I wouldn't say it's a huge, it was a small view of the Mediterranean Sea, and at the time that was $900. Again, Toulon not well known, just to give you a nice budget figure. I checked for the same size one, a 2-bedroom today, a little bit earlier before this presentation, and in Paris, a 2-bedroom, well, this is furnished too. 2-bedroom in Paris furnished is starting at $2,200 a month. That's just kind of the starting price. You could definitely find cheaper. Don't think that I'm just talking about 800 square feet. If you can definitely find cheaper, you want to go smaller, you can definitely find more expensive in Paris. But just to give you an idea of how budgets differ greatly in France, you're really thinking about rent and housing costs. If you move outside the center of a lot of these towns, the prices go down. Later on, we wanted to buy an apartment, and we ended up buying an apartment, again, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, in one of the nicer neighborhoods of the city, and it was a 10-minute walk to the beach, and we paid $220,000 at that time. That was about 6 years ago. We moved to a house, which I'll talk about later. But that is an excellent retirement option as well. This area around Toulon and some of the smaller villages that are around this Mediterranean area are quite affordable, and the big thing to do down here is to purchase apartments. Again, this is a 2-bedroom. This was enough space for us. You can definitely downsize and have a smaller, maybe 1-bedroom, but Toulon is a cheaper place, and I'll talk about some other places to look at. So keeping in mind that rent is probably going to be one of your biggest costs when you will be looking at a place to retire or moving abroad. I mentioned $900 to rent a 2-bedroom by the sea. If you're in the center of town of Toulon and you're still about like a 5-10 minute walk to the port of Toulon. Maybe you could check it out on Google. It's a very, very beautiful, picturesque port. You'll be at about $800 a month for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath furnished apartment. The global budget figures that you want to think of for France, about $2,100 per month, $2,100 per month, up to about $2,500, $600. You can go lower or you can go higher, definitely. We'll talk about different regions, specifically around the Dordogne area, Brittany, Normandy, going up north. We can go even cheaper than that, but that's your average budget figures that you want to think about when you're thinking about making the move to France. So a lot of the standard prices are the same. It's not a huge difference on utilities and gas and internet and cell phone and things like that in France. The rent is a huge factor and housing costs that you'll save on depending where you are in the country. The second thing is healthcare, which I'll talk about after we go through the budget. This is in US dollars. US dollars, I'm happy somebody wrote this. This is in US dollars. Happy totally. My email is france@internationalliving.com. If you want any of these figures in Canadian dollars, I'm more than happy to give those to you as well. So, to get to this $2,100, $2,500 a month budget, you think about $800 to $1,200 a month in rent, which is totally doable. Again, staying out of those glitzy, glamorous cities like Paris and Nice, etc. Gas for heating is about $600, electricity $50 to $60 a month. A lot of times they prorate your electricity, so they kind of anticipate how much you'll spend based on an average, and then they refund you, but no surprises there. It's pretty standard. Also, internet is about $32 a month. We do have Netflix. We don't have all of the cool channels that you guys have, unfortunately. I can't really work out how to do that, but we pay $14 a month for Netflix. I'm going to go into eating out. I think maybe there's some other things to cover as far as insurance for the car, and maintenance is about $100 a month. Eating out, you can factor about $200 a month, depending again on your lifestyle. We are in a really pretty area of France. I feel very lucky to be here, as I mentioned, kind of working class. We are kind of a lower middle class household. I make about $34,000 a year. So you're not going to get rich down here, that's for sure, definitely not in the south of France. If you want to go work on your career, it's a good idea to go to Paris or some of these bigger cities, and I manage an English language school. So we are, oh yes, VPN, I've heard of a VPN, thank you for Watch TV. I got to take a tutorial on that. So we are on it's not a tight budget, but it's a slim budget. And we live really, really well. I am from Southern California. I went to school in Santa Barbara, and I grew up in Ventura. I lived for a while in Los Angeles, and I had a lot of credit cards, and I felt like I was spending a lot of money, and I could never really catch up with the rent. I give you the rent figures here, again, between 800 and 900. We're close to the sea. You're not going to find that everywhere. Again, if you're going up the French Riviera, this is kind of specific to where we are. Other areas that are interesting for rents include Montpellier. It's the fastest growing city in France, and there's a lot of new developments. The rents are, because there's so many apartment buildings and homes being built, the rents are pretty competitive. Another way to save is just shopping at the local markets. The local markets, if you find your favorite, again, just basing on Toulon because this is where we live, they have a huge, what we call Provençal outdoor market, fresh, oh, you worked at UCSD, hi. Tracy, hi. They have fresh vegetables, seasonal stuff. You definitely want to stay away from, I mean, it's kind of cliche to say like the tourist traps. But kind of, I think it's about 20 minutes from Toulon. There's a very glamorous, and I keep saying glamorous, but it's a very chic resort, seaside resort town called Bandol. And if you go to Bandol, you are rubbing elbows with some of the rich and famous. It's beautiful there. There's yachts in the port. We've got amazing wine, tour the wine vineyards when you have a chance. But the market is almost twice as much as our small market because all of the tourists are there. So obviously, this kind of obvious is avoid the touristic markets. Shop locally, and you have really fresh seasonal, French are all about fresh and seasonal vegetables and really nice prices. When we eat out, we don't eat out all the time. I really enjoy cooking. I have a lot more time than I had when living in California to cook and prepare meals at home. So I shop at these markets and I prepare at home, and it's kind of a hobby, kind of side hobby for me. But we do go out, we always get a set menu price. So I don't know if you've been to France or even Italy, and I'm sure Portugal and Spain the same. You might know this already, so just go through it quickly. A set menu price is that they'll have what's called their ardoise, which means like chalkboard, and they're going to tell you what the menu is. On the high end for lunch, you'll pay $18 for this menu. This is not including wine. And on, like I said, the high end, and what you're going to get is you're going to get a starter and a main dish, and probably a coffee. Wine is usually extra. You can go on the high end and get like an $8 glass of wine. You can go on the low end and get 4. I prefer to go on the high end because you never know sometimes with the cheap wine. So you can have a starter, might be like a goat cheese salad, and then maybe you have like a entrecote, a steak with some fries, your glass of wine, and then they'll include the coffee. Or you could do the main dish, which I prefer to do, and then a dessert. So again, you could have this steak with the frite. And then you could have like a mousse au chocolat or a flan or a little pastry or a gourmet coffee. And on it, again, the high end of that will be $18. And if we go out to lunch, we always do that because if you buy separately, definitely the bill adds up. One thing I'd like to just mention about French food, again, if you've been in France, you've probably seen this already. It's almost all French food. We have quite a difficult time finding other types of food. There's a Thai takeout now in Toulon. There's a couple Chinese places. There's a taco kind of truck, but it's not real tacos. It's more like wraps. There's so much French food. It's not like if you were in the U.S. and you went to a French restaurant. Since there's so much competition, the prices stay relatively low. And a lot of these restaurants have to have a certain fixed menu price to be included. Oh, hi Patricia. To be included in a guide. So there's a lot of restaurant guides. French love eating out. And so we asked our favorite restaurant in Bandol, and I believe they can't go any higher, their price point, than €36 for their set menu in the evening because they won't be included in this guide, and they want to be in this guide, and so they're making money on the wine. So I won't again sugarcoat it. The wine is expensive. The wine will be expensive. You have a gourmet meal for €36, which I'm going to say is about $40 with the exchange rate. It'll knock your socks off, but they do want you to buy a fairly expensive bottle of wine. You can get a glass, that's fine as well. But this is how we save money, the set menu prices. I'm also a huge fan of discount supermarkets. The discount supermarkets in France are fabulous. We have, if you know Lidl, we have a Lidl supermarket. It's a 5-minute drive from our home. I'm usually there on Saturday mornings. and picking up, if I didn't have time to shop at the local market, fruits and vegetables. They have amazing prices on wine. We usually get a recommendation before we go. You can get you can get an okay bottle of wine for, believe it or not, $4. You can get an excellent bottle of wine for $8. Other discount supermarkets here, there is Lidl, Aldi. I think those have made it to the U.S. There's another one called Grand Frais. It's like big fresh place translation. And there's another place called Price Leader. And we shop at those, and that's how we save money. Again, France, I've said this in another presentation, it's not really keeping up with the Joneses kind of place. I haven't had a credit card since I left California, which I find is really exciting. We don't spend like we used to spend. We're still driving our same car that we've had for 10 years that we paid about $5,000 when we first arrived. It's just not that kind of place. It's not a kind of, max it out, live to the fullest. Prices are cheaper, and we're able to live within our means, and I think that's one of the nicest things about being here, and I never would have thought that before moving to France that was possible. What I also wanted to mention was healthcare. I'm going to try my best to explain healthcare. It is a completely different system than the US. As I mentioned, I'm going on 10 years living in France, and I still have a hard time getting used to the healthcare system because it is so completely different to what I grew up with and what I knew in the United States. First of all, I just want to throw this out there for taxes, because there's going to be a taxes little segment in here. You are not paying French taxes unless you are working in France or gaining active income. I'm working in France. As I mentioned, I make about $34,000. We do the conversion dollars a year. I pay into the healthcare system, and it's a percentage of everybody's income. So this is what universal healthcare is all about. Meaning that you make $150,000, you make, the minimum wage here, I want to say it's $18,000, it might be $21,000 a year. And everybody's paying a percentage of their income, and it's the same percentage into the healthcare system. For me personally, I pay about $1,800 a year to the healthcare system, and what that includes is 70% off of doctor's visits. Doctor's visits, since I've been here, have never changed. Again, 10 years. The cost is €25, which is $28. 70% off means that each time I go to the doctor, I am paying $8. So fortunately, I'm just going to give an example because it's nice to kind of have some real world examples. I sprained my ankle about a year and a half ago, and it's kind of flared up this last month, and this is a true story. So the last couple of weeks, I've been to the doctor about 4 times, different specialists, and a foot doctor, podiatrist, and each time I have paid $8. People get top-up insurance to cover the rest, and that's about $32 a month. So basically, I paid this $1,800 for the year, and then each time I go, I could not be on the system, and I would just pay €25, $28 to go see the doctor. It's an incredible system. Prices are fixed by the state. They don't go up. You need something medical done, you need a eye surgery or a hip replacement, you go look and you see how much it is online. That's a huge savings. Prescription drugs it's up to 100% covered. And again, the costs, it's hard to wrap your brain around. The costs are so cheap here for healthcare. It's a good system. You can see any doctors that you like. There's no pre-existing conditions. There's no age limits. There's no network. You don't have to stick in any kind of network. You heard a doctor was good and you want to change and he's 20 minutes away, or you found a specialist in the next town over. You just call him up and make an appointment. So again, this is one of the biggest savings in France. Again, France is not going to be your cheapest dirt cheap place to retire. You're saving on the rent and you're saving on healthcare, just a ton on healthcare. My husband always encourages me. I have a common cold. He's like, go to the doctor and see someone. I'm just not used to doing that because we don't do that. I just, anytime I'm obviously 10 years in, I'm more used to this system. So I do I do feel I can go. I don't want to, clog up the works either and go all the time, but it's just this ease of living and not having to worry about, going into debt or being bankrupt over healthcare. It's a huge weight off our shoulders and a huge savings. So again, another huge way that we save, and just to mention, this is really important for people who are thinking about retiring in France, is that France has a tax treaty with the United States, and they cannot tax any passive income, meaning Social Security, retirement benefits, pension, and so they can't charge you for any money from the health card out of that. So if you want to email me directly, I can get into a deeper explanation about healthcare. I hope that is as simple as it gets. It's a great system. I hope that was fairly clear. Feel free to leave a comment. I'll go into more detail as needed. Lastly, just want to get to some of these places in France where the living is good and it's fairly cheap. I went to the Dordogne region, which is in southern central France. I was there this summer. It was end of June, beginning of July. This place is amazing. People have been talking about it for years. There's a lot of French gossip going around, and sometimes little whispers and jokes, because there's a ton of British folks that have settled in the Dordogne, and they call it Little England or Dordogne Shire, and everybody's saying, oh, the town I'm living now, I'm close to Toulon in southeast coast near French Riviera, somebody asked. And so everybody's, I'm a French people and I've never been, and I was so happy to go, and I connected with a group of American retirees who are living in the Dordogne region. I thought, what is so great about this place? They're not near the sea, but they've got everything else. It's just a stunning place in France. The Dordogne River runs right through it. You've got these hilltop castles. Have you seen the photos of the waving, I don't know how to say that, sunflower fields going back and forth in the wind, and people on their bicycles and canoeing? It has, I think, 10 of the most beautiful villages in all of France, and it has a really cool, vibrant lifestyle. You are a bit off the beaten track. I show you very off the beaten track. It's not very easy to get to. But there's a ton of American expats there, which I wasn't aware of. They've formed kind of an informal network. And there's food festivals. It's a huge gourmet place. I was in Sarlat, La Canada, which is the expat hub, the real place to be. And there's the open market. They've got Thanksgiving, New Year's. They recently got together, rented out a little gîte, which is kind of like an urban, little farm. And they're having a Mexican night. I mean, it's just a bunch of fun activities, very social, cultural, preserved medieval town. Your classic, very picturesque French place to be. And the best part is the real estate is very cheap. I did some research before I went. I talked to people who had rented there and who had bought properties. And I also looked at some agencies. And I checked yesterday. To get the latest figures, you can rent a 2-bedroom furnished house, 1 bath in the Dordogne for $700 a month. A very nice lady that I met from Florida, Cecile, she recently bought a house. She bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a garden, a nice terrace, good views, right outside this town of Sarlat. And she paid about $220,000. So if keeping in mind, you can go up if you feel like you want to maybe buy a large property and do a bed and breakfast. That's really cool. You don't need that much space. You can buy an apartment in the center of town, but the prices are very low. About 6 months ago, I updated the Escape to France book for international living. So I checked all these prices out. You can get properties buy homes in the Dordogne region of France for $150,000. I wouldn't go under $100,000. You do need to put some work into it, but you're at $150,000. You could get a nice property, move-in ready. There's no strings attached. I'm happy to direct anybody in the right place. So cheap living in the Dordogne. Another place to save money, moving up to Brittany. I focused a lot on the south of France because this is kind of the romantic dream, picturesque, either living by the sea or this, along the river. because the weather is quite nice. This is kind of our fantasy of coming to the south of France would have to be nice and sunny weather. It does get quite hot in the summer. You're going to need some air conditioning. But I don't want to rule out the other places in France as well. It's all personal taste. If you do think about moving to France or you visited already, you probably know which areas that you feel more welcome in or kin to or speak to. Recently we had an online conference and somebody was really set on the north of France. Strasbourg, Alsace, Lorraine, going up to Metz, and those are just gorgeous, picturesque places. The weather's not going to be the south of France weather, but sometimes it's not a big deal. Brittany Coast, again, homes 150,000. You can get under 100,000. You have to look. You might again have to make a research trip out to see. Renting, I had a quick check this morning to rent in Brittany Saint-Malo. Which is a pretty resort seaside town that I think is probably one of the most well-known. 2-bedroom, 1-bath furnished home you can get for $750 to rent a month. Prices are similar in Normandy, heading a little bit further north from Brittany. And the coolest thing about Normandy, which I always thought would be just the funnest thing to do, is if you were to rent or buy in Normandy, you are a train ride away from Paris. So I found it was just a tad more expensive, about $100 more, so it's about $800 to rent a 2-bedroom furnished home in Normandy. But again, close to Paris. I remember the first time I visited Paris many moons ago, I think it was about 15 years ago, that I took a train out to, pronouncing this correctly, Giverny, which is the home of Monet. Well, yes. It was the home where he painted these famous lily pads, gardens, and whatnot. Remember living in Paris? It was just a short train ride away, and I didn't really realize I was getting into Normandy. It was a couple stops, and there we were. And it's a really cool thing about Europe in general. Of course, I'm a huge fan of France. Is that if you're in my area of France, if you're in the Dordogne, Brittany, Normandy, you went further up to north to Lille, or you were going to, again, Alsace, Strasbourg, Lorraine. All these fun places are just a train ride away. And with the cheaper rent and the cheaper housing prices, for example, us, we're able to travel around like I never thought I would be able to living in Europe. So I think I covered quite a bit there. Please feel free to ask any questions. I did put up a link to the International Living website page specifically for France and cost of living. Just want to reiterate again, France, a wonderful place to live. I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world. I love it. I love talking about France. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, and if you have any questions on cost, just to let you know that France can be very affordable. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Wishing you a very bonne journée, a really good day from south of France. Thank you.